Perfect. Hello, hello, hello. I'm just inviting a few people. How you all doing? Let's see where this goes. So bear with me just a little bit. Please don't drop out. I promise you that it'll be a very uplifting, realistic conversation. I don't even know where to begin sometimes, but I do know we have to begin somewhere. I hope you all are doing great. I want you to know that through this, those that are freedom fighting and evaluating or feeling or questioning their inner needs, I salute you. But I posted a meme I found about I'm going to ignore anything that interferes with my well-being. But I want to change the words to that a little bit because this is a topic that could really help us on our journey. I'm going to take my glasses off just for a quick minute. I'm going to ask Gaia to bless us as we're speaking, and as universal law goes, I am exercising my right to be heard, and those that seek to shut us down cannot. So, moving on, I want to talk about this topic, and this topic is very diverse, and it's up to the individual to look into their own heart and soul. But what do we ignore as we are the witnesses in a modern era of civilization that is rapidly changing? And as it's rapidly changing, we do see that there's a divide. And as we are freedom fighters, people who believe in a cause, people who have the ability to connect, really what I want to stress is that there's many people who are understanding that there are different segues, but nonetheless they are in the right direction. But as they are in the right direction, including ourselves, what do we ignore? What are we fighting for? Is it really a fight? How do we rise up? And all these things are prevalent to what we do in the next decade. And I'll say decade because it's going to go by like that very swiftly. And things are changing, as we know. And where do we really begin when there is a diversity? And as that diversity seeps into communities, the divide becomes so intense that people in themselves are at a loss for words. So I'm choosing to ignore some things that interfere with my well-being, but as I ignore them, I want to stress that they are put on the back burner because they are irrelevant. And what are some of the things that are irrelevant that one should ignore to keep them in balance? And that is continuous debates that only raise a subject but never has a solution. There's a point in life where you have to put down the knowledge you have acquired and you have to make a decision on how you are going to carry out your own life. And when you do that and you realize that you are moving forward and the causes you are standing for are so much bigger, you ignore the small stuff and you confront it at a later date. Because let's face it, That's the stuff that keeps us enslaved. And I won't let that interfere with my beauty anymore. And I won't let that interfere in observation and what I am here to do, because the thing is that if we don't raise the voice and talk about these issues that are on the table for everybody in every community, because this is a self-sustaining planet, there are forces that are stopping humanity from thriving. And nobody wants to say it, but it's all behind hushed doors, because the general population that understands this, they're afraid to speak out. And I get that. But at this point, if love is to turn into a quality, and I'm using the word quality, that leads us into healing, into change, into love, into taking oneself and arriving at a point where they could step forward and cut the small stuff out and go a step further. So I'm going to give you all a little parable to think about. When Moses was on the mount and people were set free from slavery, we're speaking of the Jewish tribe now. People went buck wild. They had their freedom. They gave into temptation. They did all kinds of things that they regretted. And before you know it, Moses comes down, and the God of the gods, and I'm being, very short storied here, reprimanded its people, and the people were lost and they were crying out, etc., so on, and how it goes. They were looking for a savior. Now you go over this story and you kind of like play it out continuously in your mind, because you want to understand how it affects us here. And we are witnessing the same thing in a modern era, because people are out of control, but they don't want to admit they are out of control for whatever led them out of control. And now they're going to be desperately seeking some type of refuge. So what do you ignore with that? Because there are things that are more prevalent to our kind, because we are looking to come together. And now I speak like this, but I speak like this not out of a person's ability to love or to live harmoniously in a world that's so confused. You're not talking to anybody in any community, wherever you are, that doesn't have an issue going on. Yes, we could come up here and we could say a lot of things, and we do, and we really mean it, but we never get to the real issues. Israel is locked down. Oz is locked down. South Africa is under quarantine, and we're reaching out to our South African friends to say, hey, look, we don't know what's real or not. Let us confirm, because we already got confirmation from our friends in Oz what's happening there, right? We all already got information about what happens in Austria, in Germany, and how it is affecting humanity, and who's standing up and who's not, and where you're being silenced. But it does affect us in a spiritual community who is going back to love, because sooner or later, even though we are transmitting love, it affects us, our everyday life. And don't say it doesn't, because you see people melting down. And I'm like, look, I have things going on, but I'm not melting down like that. And then you have to say, well, after so many, little blunders, I got the assignment. You know what I mean? I understood the assignment that was given to me. But people don't want to talk like that, because we're all healing and we're all coming to terms. But why can't you heal and come to terms and be realistic in what's going on Gaia, our planet, that's being poisoned, that we are still sheep? We don't know our true origins, but we really do, but we can't admit it, because that's the real culture shock, right? So instead, we're going on creed, religions, cultures, color of skin, and none of it makes sense, because everybody's entrapped and selling themselves out one way or another. So I think about all those things, and I have to ignore that right now, because I understand the powers to be have orchestrated this, and they designed it very nicely. And they're still waiting for the people to come and put them in their place, because then it's a once and for all kind of thing, right? And I'm using that just as terminology because there's many frequencies that contribute to that downfall. But what are we understanding here? So why can't we understand this and still be about love and light and doing the things that we have to do? Because we are very visual people, right? And as we're visual people, what really happens is that we get attracted by the things that are tempting and lure us into an unrealistic version of ourselves that they put out that we can't possibly obtain. They obtain it through control. So it's always a double standard, and it's always a pit against one another, and people are always going to fight, right? But if you're here for love, and if you are not about the divide, don't you ignore that nonsense that is going on and say, look, it's going to be either this class or that class, and there's a definite split. Well, yeah, I could see that happening, but I could also see people say, it doesn't have to be that way. We could become the ones that outcast what they are trying to do to us. And they is a widespread, because it could be through the mind, it could be outright communism that we are witnessing at this point, the lies, what we accept, what we're attracted to, it's all out there. So when do you take responsibility and what do you ignore? So I'm choosing to ignore people that really don't have it together, because that's more of selling you something that leads you to something that heightens, right? The psychosis. We want to heal the psychosis in mind, body, and soul, so people could walk forward. But you can't do that with drama. You can't do that with the lies. You can't do that with you are not above anybody else and you don't participate in this and that, because you still got to sustain and it's still very visible. Why don't you build different systems? And they can be done. You build systems that are different. You work with people differently, right? You don't say you got it all, and you don't segregate those of your tribe that enhance in a different way. What you do is you stick together and you raise questions when things aren't right. And we're so afraid to do that. So yeah, I choose to ignore that. But that doesn't mean because I'm ignoring it that I won't deal with it, because I'll deal with it kindly and eloquently as I am showing and standing in my own power. And that in itself is a force to be reckoned with. So what do we do? Because we see people now locked in, the locked in people, their plan is being executed in many formats, and people are rising up, but it's really not enough, right? And it's not enough because the system of how we are flowing is not in unification. As they are flowing, they're in unification all through the land. So I'm sure we could be in unification somehow, some way. And until we get the ability to speak on the mic where all voices hear us and they either give us a yay or a nay, you will not be taken seriously, because you have to have the ability to speak of the love that manifests when you do transform, the traumas that were bestowed upon humanity that were changed around, the unification that came through many challenges and disagreements, but the silken woven foundation did not break, because you were learning and you were excelling. But we don't do that because we are in competition. So what are you competing for? And I ponder that, because if I think back to many moons ago and what happens, we all want to be seen, and we want to all be the best of the best, but then we get it confused because that competition or how we're competing is not for the best of self. It's to conquer. You have to understand what you're doing here, and most people don't. So it's many different things. So I choose to ignore those things because that's not my mission, and that's a waste of time for me now, because that's the loop from 2012, and people are still looping there, and people are still acting foolishly out of fear. And I understand it is fearful, but I can't challenge that, because that is something that is personal, right? So as it's personal, you have the information out, you have to make a decision. I have to ignore that, and I have to keep going for the goal to, I'm going to say it like a cowgirl, hit the target, because the target needs to be hit in order for people to pay attention, because now people are doing bits and pieces, right? So these are all the things that are on the table, and people are hurting out there, and people want to rise up, and people are also being ignorant out there, and they are clueless. And, where do we draw the line, and what do we ignore to get to the people who really then could make a difference in their voice, or what they have seen and how they could show? Because it's all a trick play out there. It's a big trick play. And I don't want no part of that. I ignore that, because I know that I could rise above that. And I do rise above that every day. But yet I could still be kind and genuine. I'm not fake. And most people get caught up in that because they want to be in circles of all people, instead of knowing that you're exchanging with people and that there's a mutuality of respect. But, it's always, it's so unhealthy, and it's such a lie that I have to ignore the bullshit that's going on out there, because once it's challenged, I am not going to hold back. I am going to speak the truth with kindness and respect, but I'm not going to continuously feed into the lie. It's a lie when you continuously have that animosity, or if you do have some sort of thing you are working through, you can never contain it and get it under control and say, look, this is how I feel, I work on it, but I don't hurt. Or you know what, if I have to be so direct where it's explosive, that is something that has to be done, and I'm never turning back. But people can't really say that, because then you have to admit that we're learning. This is how we understand our own powers. So I'll be a monkey's uncle if you think that I'm going to go for that, because I'm totally not going to go for that, because I am a person that understands that, and I could teach it, and I could exchange, and I could learn, and I could admit that there are times that I wish I didn't do certain things because I handled it inappropriately. But I don't use that bullshit to turn around and diss people and then talk about them and think I'm superior. No. If I have something to say, I'll say it, and then your response is your response. I don't constantly revert back, because there's just some things you just can't do. And then you have the most popular people throughout the whole world feeding lies, and then by the time people of all races and nations get it, they're so damaged that they don't come back. I'm not about that. And I don't ever want to be about that. And I do have this exuberance about me, even when I face challenging and low times, because the low times have taught me to understand the challenges in these times, and now to be exuberant as I live and finish out my lifespan here, and to really figure it out. And why is that so wrong? And to help somebody along the way. You see, we're so fake and phony in general, right? All people of the world, because we don't know how to be, that we forgot the very basis. That's a lie that they're teaching you to compete. Look, I'm a beauty enhancer, and I love all those things, and I believe in that self-care, and I'm not opposed to certain things. What I'm opposed to in my heart, and I don't know if I could even say it's opposed, or if it saddens me, or what have we become, that a human being totally wants to wipe out who they are, create another persona, and live it almost robotically. Now, everybody has beauty, and yes, some people are ugly. Let's admit it. We can't lie about that, and we all have flaws. I'm never going to be a size 7, and I get that. But, what do we enhance to ourselves, and where is the real beauty? And that's what's happening on all levels. There's an alteration going on, and that's not a good thing. There's a difference between a critique and an alteration. Who you want to be. Do you really think all those things are going to make you happy? And again, I'm not opposed of those things that make a person happy. What I am opposed of is that we are so lost that we are searching for a persona that we are creating to fulfill something. And what is it going to fulfill? And people don't want to talk about that because it's a very delicate subject matter. But if you're truly transforming, you should be able to talk about that. So this ascension, and we are there, and we are one. Well, if we are one, and even though our brothers and sisters are rising as they are living through difficult times, they are the living proof of what we are witnessing. And if we don't want it to happen worldwide, how do we help ourselves, let alone rescue them? Come on, guys. There's everything spiritual about that. So those are the things that deter you. And stupid people, unfortunately, everybody thinks someone is stupid. Don't lie. Don't front about it. Then we think others are super intelligent. Then we get confused. Then we get, hard on ourselves because we judge somebody. But we all think these things. And where are you leading your own self? And those are the things that you have to ask your leaders, because they're leading us down the tubes. And I refuse to go out that way. So I'm going to leave you all with that to think about. And as you think about that, I think that, we should all take responsibility. Time is short, guys. There's a lot of things going on, and they're going on swiftly. There's still no answers about the children. There's still no answers about what is happening to people that are being flown into locations throughout the world. They are clear about their objective. They are following suit and letting it play out in areas that have been strong, muscled, and we are witnessing it. So where is the powers within? I know how to exercise mine, but I can't do it alone, and I need help. Give me the airways, and I'll at least break the barrier, and then you all can flood in. But the thing is that this constant reminder of owning our own trauma is something that's leading our children to make decisions based on what they can and cannot do. I think it's horrific that parents are forced to make choices because if they don't, their children cannot prosper. And yes, we could do a lot of research. And yes, we could only pray. But there's not one amongst us that have loved ones that are making choices that they must make. And we ourselves cannot interfere. We could pray. We could hope we're wrong in our own analysis. But we know we are not. And we understand because we are living on this planet. So when I ponder these things and I think about these things and I think about the people I care about, there comes a time that I also have to say, I understand. And now as you make these choices, make the best possible ones and try to have a backup plan. If you would notice, I am concerned about one thing. Because to me, this is not something that I just spit out. I would never do that. People's lives are on the line. And I never say that I am right, but I follow science, intuition, and I follow the logic of a moral code. So what I've noticed now, if I parallel what happened in the 80s when the epidemic first became public about AIDS. And I watched how the immune system was compromised, and I tucked it away because we were all very ignorant, and we were ignorant in the States to believe it was transmitted from Africa through a monkey or whatever the hell they said transmitted it, and it wiped out a good portion of the population. So now when I think about the disease, I say, okay, it hit the immune system, the weakest part of one's immune system. And that's what compromised them, and that's how they died in the process. And then I am rewinding now to the parallel of what we are living. So now it's been, 18 months? And a lot of people ran to get vaxxed, and, we're confused, and we trust the science of it all, and we trust the doctors, and we, have trouble believing that this could happen. And then, things start to compile, and we have no choice but to look at it, especially after the politics of it all, where everybody was rah-rah-rahing for a Democratic Party, and now we are sinking, and, adult conversation couldn't take place. That's dangerous. Now you look at how people are getting sick now. There's a rise in cancer. Okay, so we know that we have the natural cell in our body, and it could be activated through many things, right? And I think about the parallel, and I think about this plan, and I think about a vaccination that's out there that really, I am not anti-vaxxed. I am anti against our people unknowingly being slaughtered, and through our own ignorance, because we think that we are taking the vaccination of youth, we are saving ourselves. We are also killing ourselves. No young children know about their own body. Science is not being taught about the human anatomy. They don't even know the charts where golds and metals and minerals and so forth and so on are abbreviated. They don't even know H2O is water. Okay, there's a problem here. Those things trouble me, because if I talk to somebody I love about it, the thing is that they're trying to save their loved ones, and they are trying to live a normal life, and they've been lied to, and they think that their lifespan is to 70, 80 anyway. And how many people do we know died of this, that? They don't see the rise of how they're being wiped out, and they're dying younger and younger. That's a real issue for me. It's an issue for me. It's an issue for me that the doctors of today are not being taught the way real doctors are taught. And don't get me wrong, there's some brilliant doctors out there. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, but if you go even to a hospital now, the PA sees you before the doctor, and they themselves are collecting information. Unless you got super duper healthcare, and you got super duper access to prime doctors. This is what happens globally. So you tell me what's going on. Why is Israel locked down? Locked down again. Why? Develop the vaccine. That's why you have to be aware. So these choices are very difficult, and I have to ignore the ignorance of it all, because then my job will never get done. So yes, can I read cards from the best of the best? Can I channel from the best of the best? That's of no longer, things that, those skills are different, although it's in a constant connection, because there's real issues going on here. And I can't let the silliness of it all, although I love a good card reading, I really do. But I don't use it like for dependency. It's a whole different thing when you're traveling on a different frequency. But you still see human condition being ugly and nasty. So if I'm driving on the highway now and I see all the garbage, what are you blaming the government for that for? You know what I mean? Like those things, like, do I ignore that? Yeah, we'll have to ignore that because you know what? If you think about it, people are pigs. Why are you being a pig when people are trying to better this world? See, it goes back to all these things all the time. So do I raise an issue or that, or do I pass it through my mind and then ignore it? But then I do my part, right? So these are the things that they don't want you to know. And even in the spiritual community, I wish people would stop with this divide. Yeah, so we're in a divide, so what? Are we going to still try to write it? No, we can't try to write it any longer. We can only live our lives. Who will love you will love you. Who won't. Who will have to repent, whether it's us or the next person, whatever. We will have to go through it, right? This divine lives. And when you have, not many people have it on a super high level, because I think working through it is the hardest part. And I'm not talking about the love and the caring. I mean to be able to really understand our people and to talk about it, but not in judgment. This has nothing to do with judgment, or I told you so, or, you know, oh, I know better, or this politician is going to help me. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do that these are the real issues that our people face, and as our people face them, can we be understanding? Can we admit that there is trouble in paradise and we don't know how to fully extend ourselves so we get the attention? Only people who get the attention are the people that have a personal interest in selling themselves out. And I'm talking on a very high level now. And the good ones, yeah, they're trying. It's a freak show all the way around. But to ask either side the direct question, no one has the cojones because they don't know how to word it. This is only a discussion, but these are the things that are really happening. And you must deal with them, and you must go through all these things so you can understand the human condition. And you can do it with love, style, and grace, and be with your tribe, and still command this divinity over yourself. And it has nothing to do with money. It's a frame of mind. And that opulence that you search for is in your heart and soul. And then the abundance starts to activate. Because abundance means different things to different people. So we should talk about it. And we should raise the issues. And I'm going to leave you with that to think about it. What are you ignoring? Can you really chat in a modern day era that faces challenges? Who are you? What do you want to be? And can we stop all this nonsense in between? Because you could do it all and still have style and grace and be a shiny one. You can't fake this, I'm telling you. And then you start to realize who does fake it. And that's power in itself. Namaste.